You're listening to Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. Small town feel with big time ideas. After all, you are entitled to Brad's opinion. Here's your host, Brad Allard.
Yes, we're back for another week after the 4th of July holiday, after the World Cup disaster last night. You watched that last night?
No, but I heard about it. USA and Belgium, yeah?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and a lot of people are disappointed. And of course, there was all this controversy, and Trump got involved, and blah, blah, blah. And the Belgians are basically saying, "Suck it, Trump," and all this other stuff. But I think the idea that we blew it, we did not play well at all. But the fact is, Belgium also is the number 8 ranked team in the world. We're about 16 or 17 or something like that. I mean,
yeah, so there's an offset of skill for sure.
Yeah. So we're not talking about we lost to a bunch of bums. You know, I don't know if Belgium's going to win this thing. I doubt it, but they are continually in the mix. Personally, this is my prediction. France, I think, is going to win it. If they don't, it'll be Spain. It'll be the winner of that when they match up, whenever that is, semifinals or finals. Argentina might, but I've watched a lot of this soccer, and the difference between some of these African teams and European teams is pretty slim. I mean, it's just they're really some good teams.
No, they're all good. Yeah.
Well, Morocco is nobody's joke. They went to the semifinals last World Cup, and I wouldn't be surprised now that they play France. I think not Friday. I don't know when. I can't keep up with the schedule. I know as we speak right now at 11:03, Argentina and Egypt are playing, and then we have Colombia and Switzerland. Anyway, so what'd you do on the 4th?
Absolutely nothing.
That's
it was
great.
Fantastic.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. We had basically an aerial bombardment in our neighborhood. We live out a little bit out in the country, and we had 3 sets of neighbors that were getting after it. I mean, it was like sleeping in Beirut or something like that. And they were, really, they were just setting off fireworks, firecrackers, old black cats and stuff like that, like we were kids. I mean, they were shooting this aerial stuff that had to be very expensive. I bet
the mortars, yeah.
Yeah, I bet probably a couple of $1,000s worth of fireworks went off in our neighborhood.
Good night.
Just between the 3 of the sets of neighbors.
Whenever I was living with my parents, we lived off of 1187, right behind that the Texas Health Hospital.
Yeah.
And fireworks would start on the 2nd, and they would end on maybe the 7th of July and go up until like 3 or 4 in the morning.
Yeah. Well, our neighbors aren't that inconsiderate. I mean, they're done by about 10 on, so.
That's good.
But as far as, you could hear them going off. I mean, at one point on 4th of July night, it was like for like 30 minutes, it was like a continuous fire. I mean, it would really sound like you're in a war zone. Night. But anyway, that's just my 4th. Today, we're just going to be me. I'm just going to talk about some of the things that have been going on in the last couple of weeks. A couple of Supreme Court rulings. Going to talk about what's going on with politics as we get closer to the midterms. We're going to get, I got some discussions on not just birthright citizenship ruling, but also on one that probably, goes under the radar, but it's going to have a real impact on the politics, which is about the reduction of limits on what political parties can spend on behalf of their candidates. And I won't get too far into the weeds on this because it's, it's stuff I teach in my class, but still they don't need to, get all that worked up. But anyway, so I got it all saved. We're good to go. So let's talk about our sponsors. Our buddy, Our Place, Otto, it's still good, still wonderful. By the way, there is a contest going on in Crowley about favorite restaurant in Crowley, and Our Place, too, is one of the nominees. So if you have an opportunity to vote for Otto, do it. The food is great, the service is great, in all his locations. And that's what I like about it is, this is the value of having hometown ownership of restaurants, because half the time I'm in Gina's, he's there. The other times I'm in Our Place, particularly the one in Burleson, his son runs it, or the lady that's like the manager, a fine woman named Lana, who has been there for a long time. That kind of personalized ownership you don't get in chains. So that's a good thing. Also, Gina's, of course, great pizza. Tonight is chess night. Tomorrow night is bingo night. I've heard about bingo night. You need to be there early if you want a table. As far as chess night, it's pretty crowded. I've gone there the last couple of Mondays, and it's a pretty full house. Yeah, and you know how rowdy these chess club crowds can get. And were you in the chess club in school, Josh?
No, I was not. I didn't get into chess until much later. But
I didn't get into a lot of those clubs in school. I once tried to join the French club, but all we were doing was surrendering to the German club. So I didn't join that. I did the Spanish club because there's a good-looking girl in it, and I thought, what the heck? She was very buena. Anyway, on to the sponsorships. Yeah, John over at Old Pro, John Williams, good for checking out your roof. The thing is that that a lot of people don't think about the roofs when the weather's like this, and then they think about the roof when we get the monsoon. This is the best time to get your roof inspected. Okay, it didn't take long. It's free. Call John at 817-734-2756, and then he'll tell you what's going on, and you won't have to worry about it next time we do have rain. Which I don't know, maybe October, who knows? But the thing about it also is he'll tell you that the heat does affect the roof, and so you need to know. You're shaking your head like you know.
Oh yeah, yep. It's just Texas weather. You gotta prepare for the worst.
I've been living in Texas almost all my life. I think when I was a small boy, I lived in North Carolina for about 18 months, and I was born in a military base. But I would say in my 64 years, I've lived 61 and a half of them in Texas. I'm the only person in my family, my dad's side anyway, and my mom's side, that was born outside of Texas and Oklahoma. And I still have a hard time with Texas summers.
Oh yeah.
You just don't ever really get used to it. You just endure it. So call John, and he'll tell you what's the truth about your roof. Also, my buddy Jeff Kelly over at the Wethington Agency, 817-781-0546, or Jeff at jeffkellyrealty.com. They're here in town, the Wethington Agency. And that's good to know because, you want to deal with home folks. Like Old Pro, they're home folks. You want to deal with home folks. A lot of people do their business online. Okay, whatever. But if you want these kind of things, you need to do face-to-face work with an agent, and Jeff will do that. And he's very good at it. He jokes about him being the fourth best realtor in Johnson County, but I bet he's at least third. So there you go. Also, Rod Lewis, Burleson News Express, came out yesterday. Go pick you up a copy. About 54 different locations. Most of the city buildings, public buildings, most of the salons, most of the coffee shops, most of the car repair joints, they all have these. And so you can pick up and read about what's going on. And it's nice to have it. I like to sit down and read the paper. The Star Telegram doesn't print anymore. And the Dallas paper only prints on Wednesdays and Sundays. And it gets thinner every month, it seems like. But here you get a little bit of hometown news and you're good to go. Also, our friends at True Climate, interesting story here. Some of the longtime listeners may know my friend Irma Vidic, or Irma Vidic Crisp is her married name. And Brandon, whom I've had on the show, I had him on last month as a published author. I'm going to get him on the show again so we can debate some more. So I like to have these kind of cross conversations. Anyway, they called me up, or text me actually, and said, who is that sponsor on your show that does air conditioning? I know there is, what's the name? I see your show, periodically. I know there is one. So who is it? And so I give them the contact information, and they're using them for a major repair. And so that tells you the value of sponsorship. Are you listening to me out there, vast listening audience? Because of the connection True Climate's made here, they got a pretty hefty job, and that's a pretty good deal. More paid for the sponsoring. 682-244-2019. Again, 682-244-2019. Talk to Emily Cobb or her brother Will Cobb or the office lady Michelle, and they'll take care of you. So, Josh, what should we talk about first?
Oh man,
yeah,
so much to talk about.
Well, I talk about the Supreme Court rulings, I guess.
Yeah, with the birthright.
Yeah, let's. There's a video clip on it, and then I'll give you my thoughts on the matter, and we'll see what we have.
All right, let's let it roll.
Good evening. The Supreme Court today gutted one of President Trump's signature policies, rejecting his effort to end birthright citizenship as we know it. In attacking that 150-year-old right, the Trump administration argued it, quote, degrades the meaning and value of American citizenship and doesn't work in a modern world where, quote, 8 billion people are one plane ride away from having a child who's a U.S. citizen. But Chief Justice John Roberts rejected those arguments in a 26-page majority opinion, while Justice Samuel Alito, in dissent, called this one of the most important decisions in the history of the court and a serious mistake. Chief Legal Correspondent Jan Crawford has been digging into this ruling since the moment it came down and joins us again. Jan, good evening.
Well, good evening, Tony. The court said that the framers of the 14th Amendment extended the promise of citizenship to almost, quote, every free person born in this land, rejecting President Trump's efforts to rewrite the Constitution with the stroke of a pen. In one of the first executive orders of his second term, on Inauguration Day, President Trump tried to end birthright citizenship. Today, after the Supreme Court rejected his effort in a forcefully worded opinion, he called the ruling too bad for our country and urged Congress to take action immediately. Trump had argued the 14th Amendment was intended to grant citizenship to freed slaves and their descendants after the Civil War, not to the 250,000 babies born every year to people here illegally or temporarily. But in the decision by Chief Justice John Roberts, joined by Trump appointee Amy Coney Barrett and the 3 liberal justices, the court said under the Constitution they are citizens at birth. Juan Perano, CEO of LULAC, cheered the ruling.
I mean, the stakes are 400,000 to 500,000 children born in the United States to parents that may be undocumented, or at least in the process of getting legal status in the United States. All those children born would not have been U.S. citizens, and they would have been stateless.
Now, the decision means that the court ruled against 2 of President Trump's major initiatives. Earlier this term, they struck down his tariffs policy, and today, birthright citizenship. Tony?
Okie dokie. You have any thoughts on this?
I do.
Okay, hey, let's hear them.
I mean, it's in the Constitution. It's pretty... It's not even like fuzzily worded in the Constitution. It's the 14th Amendment.
Right.
And to go against that is, by definition of the word, unconstitutional.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, and that's more or less my position as well. When I say more or less, it is my position. But it is more complex than just black and white. But I think it was the right decision. I do believe it's the right decision, primarily for what you just said. I mean, it says so very clearly. Everybody born in this country is a citizen, okay? Now, the argument that it was intended for freed slaves and their descendants, like many of the proponents of the change is, my feeling is if that really was the intent of the 14th Amendment, they should have put it in the 14th Amendment, okay? Mm-hmm. All right, the people that support that position, they go to the writings and comments made by the authors of that amendment back in 1868, and they go back and they don't reference in those writings or comments what this issue is now, which is people coming to the United States and having children. But when we get into the process of trying to read into the Constitution things that aren't there explicitly, we get into trouble. Okay, I'll make a comparison to the way that some people read into the Second Amendment, what they're trying to do here, and they're trying to criticize about doing in the 14th. What they're doing in the 14th Amendment, those who support not having birthright citizenship, is they're trying to infer that this is what it really means based on what they said. Okay, well, the Second Amendment opponents, so to speak, that don't believe in unilateral or universal gun ownership or whatever else, say the Founding Fathers never intended for them to own an AR-15. Well, you don't know that, and nothing in their writings or their statements said that we're going to limit ownership of guns to a certain type. Now, my point is that if the Founding Fathers who wrote the Second Amendment wanted us to have limitations on gun control, but they did not put that into the Constitution, then we need to change the Constitution, if that's the solution to the problem. second point is that this isn't just the birthright citizenship is something that is enshrined not only in the Constitution but by federal law. Okay, and that was Kavanaugh's concurring opinion. They showed the 5-4 vote where Kavanaugh voted in favor of the other 5, but he voted separately and wrote a separate opinion. And his said, "Well, it's not that it's unconstitutional or not. It's just that's what the law is. And if you want to change the law, then change it." And that's what Trump is saying: change the law. But the other 5 are saying you can change the law and it'll still be unconstitutional. So when we infer things in the Constitution that aren't there, we get Roe versus Wade or other implied situations. I'm not getting into the abortion issue, yes or no, and all that. I am pro-life and always have been. But the point is, one of the criticisms on the Roe versus Wade decision is that it was an implied right. Well, the opponents to this 14th Amendment ruling are implying certain things themselves. And so you can't imply on one hand and try to read the writer's minds, but you can in this case and try to read the writer's minds. You follow where I'm going?
Sort of.
So, okay, what I'm saying is this. Maybe I am not saying. I'm saying that it's in black and white in the 14th Amendment, and the people that wanted to do away with that say, well, this is what they really meant. Well, that's what they do with the Second Amendment. All right, the Second Amendment, they say, well, yeah, the Founding Fathers wrote that, but this is what they really meant. And so we get into this mind-reading game or historical speculation, what they really meant, even though it's not on the page. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not on the page, this is how they felt, they should have put it on the page. Does that make it more clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but I do think that standard should be held to everything. You have people that are like, well, the Second Amendment's like we can't break that, but let's go after the 14th,
mm-hmm.
and vice versa.
And vice versa,
that are like, don't touch the 14th, but the Second and Third Amendment, they can. Mm-hmm. It's kind of. I think that if we budge on
mm-hmm.
one, that puts every other at the risk, because it shows, okay, well, this can be changed.
And that was again the Roe versus Wade controversy wasn't just the topic of it, but it was also the implied nature of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so and we get into mind reading, or it's implied, or it may not be written down there, but it's part of the spirit of the Constitution and all this other business. You basically interpret the Constitution any way you want. And for Mr. Trump to just do it by an executive order makes it even worse. I mean, he doesn't have that authority. Because he wasn't just overturning a constitutional interpretation that's been upheld, but it's also overturning federal law, which is pretty explicit that this is the case. And he just, by an executive order, says, nope, I don't care. I don't know if it's in the Constitution. I don't care if it's law. I'm changing it. And the thing about it, the Supreme Court, those that ruled in favor of birthright citizenship had precedent to go with. This is not the first time this kind of case has come up. It's the first time it's come up in about 130 years. And I teach this in my con law class, but the precedent they were using to help say, no, this is what the Constitution says, was decided in 1898. So this isn't some thing that John Roberts spun out of thin air. I mean, they're going by a historical precedent. Mm-hmm. So anyway, it's controversial, and I understand why it's controversial. The idea that somebody could cross the border, have a child, and that child is now a citizen, yeah, that's not good. But if we really want to prevent that, then you need to change the law and the Constitution, which isn't going to happen.
No.
Now, a lot of countries around the world do not practice birthright citizenship, but they also have tremendous immigration problems because a lot of those immigrants never become citizens. Okay? England, France, Germany, all these countries that have very limited citizenship for immigrants have tremendous immigration problems in terms, not so much in the numbers, but the fact that they won't assimilate into the larger society. Whereas most of the immigrants that come here want to assimilate. They want to be Americans. Okay?
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the biggest difference between our immigration issues and, say, Britain's. Because there's millions of Britons, millions of French residents that will never be citizens of that country because of their laws. And here, they become citizens, they assimilate, they get jobs, they pay taxes, on and on and on. And so that's always been the thing is, and the fact that we still have celebrations of Hispanic culture or German culture, that's not anti-American in any sense of the word. Hell, everybody's Mexican on Cinco de Mayo, right? Why is that, do you think? You could say it in one word. Beer. Same thing, St. Patrick's Day. You got these Hispanics, just call me O. Garcia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, just
Sanford
realized
Mason.
your comment screen wasn't loaded.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Here you go.
There you go. Aaron says, hello. Sanford Mason. The Congress follows the Constitution. For the most part, it gets checked by the courts. The biggest issue with new rules, regulations, or laws written by bureaucrats appointed to office, there's no check and balance until the court gets involved. Not going to comment on birthright citizenship. Don't want to get banned. Well, okay. That's Sandy. You can always be frank on this show, but if you don't agree with it or do agree with it, that's fine. But and I'm saying that the people that oppose birthright citizenship, in some cases it's racism, but a lot of cases it's not. I mean, I'm not going to say everybody that opposes birthright citizenship are racist. They're looking at the situation where people are flooding into this country and it's a strain on resources and whatever else. I don't like the universal tag of racist just because they don't agree with something I don't, or I do support, or vice versa. That's horse manure. Just to say, well, you're a racist. That's a cop out. But I do believe that a lot of the people that oppose this are more concerned about schools and hospitals getting overcrowded and things of that nature, and housing going up and all this, and it's fine. So will this settle the issue? I'm sure Trump will try to push a congressional law. I don't think the Republicans have much desire to get involved in that because it's a non-winner for them. I can't see Ted Cruz getting that involved in it because how many Hispanics live here in Texas? Now, the thing about it is the idea that all the Latinos in particular support birthright citizenship because they're Latino is, again, you're trying to paint with a broad brush. They have the same concerns that everybody else does. And that's why so many, in Texas anyway, so many Latinos vote Republican. They have the same, the concerns that most of these people have in our country, regardless of their ethnicity, are American concerns, not particularly ethnic concerns. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the beauty of this country. We always talk about the melting pot and whatever else. We had a higher percentage of foreign-born residents, if you will, in this country back 1890s, early 1900s. I mean, by a bunch. And so about a third of all people living in America, say in 1910, are either foreign-born or their parents were. Whereas in the United States today, it's about 18%. Which is higher than it's been, but there you go. All right, so there's that. The second one is a little bit more in the weeds, and it's about campaign financing. And I know that's one of those subjects that even my students, their eyes glaze over if they're not already glazed by the time I start talking about it. Teaching government at 8 o'clock in the morning, that's a real trick.
Oh, man, just 8 o'clock class in general.
Yeah.
It's got to be rough.
It is. And, this last semester, there's a lot of sleepyheads and a lot of slack attendance, and it's like, oh, boy, these, I don't know what they call them now, Generation Z. Are we going to go to the back, start at the beginning of the alphabet pretty soon?
This next generation I know is Gen Alpha.
Gen Alpha, well, that's A.
Yeah.
And then you have Gen Bravo, Gen whatever.
Charlie. Yep.
Yeah. Gen Bravo sounds like Johnny Bravo's sister. You know who Johnny Bravo is?
I do know who Johnny Bravo
Okay,
is,
all
yes.
right, good. For those out there, he's a cartoon character. Do you know what character, where they got that name?
No, I don't know.
The Brady Bunch.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, that was Greg Brady. He was Johnny Bravo.
Good to know.
Yeah, see, you sit around here, you learn lots of things.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the campaign finance. Briefly, is that right now, well, after the laws changed. Let's say previously. That's a better word. Previously, there's two basic types of money that were going through the political system: hard money and soft money. Hard money is the money I would give directly to a candidate. Soft money is the money I'd give to a party or to a political action committee that would support that candidate. Okay? And there's limitations on hard money. So let's say there's this candidate X, and I really like him or her. Let's say her, just because I want to be, woke today. I am limited by federal law to give, for a federal campaign, around $2,900. If I want to spend money on her behalf, then I could give as much as I want to a political action committee or to the party of my choice. Let's just say Republicans, because that's who I have been voting for. That's some decisions to be made this fall, but that's another conversation. And so if I want to give X amount of money, I could give as much as I want. Now, these rules don't, by the way, apply to state races. If I want to give $1 million to Greg Abbott to run, write the check. There are no limitations, and that's a problem because you've got about 5 or 6 people out in West Texas that are dropping $5 million in these campaigns at the state level, and they really affect politics. But that's, again, another conversation. But the bottom line is this. If hard money I give to the candidate, soft money I give to the party, and the candidate and the party cannot coordinate campaigns. In other words, the Republican Party, as odd as it sounds, they could spend money on behalf of their candidates, but they can't do it in coordination with the candidates. In other words, they can't call candidate X and say, this is what we want you to say, or what do you want us to say? Now, does it go on off the record? Probably, but it's against the law. So if a candidate and the Republican Party, and this applies to Democrats, of course, coordinate their campaigns and their spending and whatever else, then they're breaking FEC rules. And so it doesn't happen very often, but occasionally you'll get ads that are run by supporters of a candidate that the candidate really doesn't want to be out there because it's too over the top or whatever else. It could be implied racist, and they really, under the law, can't do anything about it. All right? What this ruling on the same day of the birthright citizenship one was last week, is that those barriers are now gone. And they could spend as much money as they want directly to the candidate in coordination with the candidate. Why is that a big deal? The Republican Party has 3 times the money to do that than the Democrats do. So let's run that clip, and then I'll explain more afterwards.
The Supreme Court this morning voiding political party spending caps. This is a win for the GOP, something that they have been pushing. We're still waiting for a birthright case. Let's get the details now with Tyler Kendall, our Washington correspondent who's outside the Supreme Court. Tyler.
Yeah, hey, Danny. So the Supreme Court is voiding political party spending caps. This is a win for Republicans, and it's really considered to be monumental for campaign finance as we head into November in the midterm elections. I can quite literally see the Capitol building behind me because we know that the balance of control of Congress is hanging in the balance on this. Now, this case was the National Republican Senatorial Committee, the NRSC, versus the FEC, the Federal Election Commission. And a fun fact about this case was actually first brought in federal court in Ohio, which means that Vice President J.D. Vance is actually a plaintiff on this case because he brought it when he was then candidate J.D. Vance running for Senate in 2022. Republicans here were challenging a federal law that limits the amount of money political parties can spend in coordination with a candidate in office. This is known as a coordinated expenditure limit. Think of it as a cap that they're able to coordinate between the two. And Republicans argue that putting that cap on it violates the First Amendment because it doesn't allow the two sides to coordinate on political messaging in TV ads. For example, a quirk of this law is that these candidates get a preferred rate when it comes to TV ads. But Danny, because we saw this law overturned, party committees in effect will have access to that far cheaper advertising rate, which means that fundraising can go even further than it already does to influence votes as we head into November.
Still around the table with us is David Weston, the host of Wall Street Week, with his extensive legal background background and knowledge. David, this just adds to Citizens United. I guess the difference was that
Hold
was
it for a
independent
second,
spending,
okay?
and now, as Tyler was pointing out, this
Just to pause, what Citizens United did back in 2010 is it basically allowed organizations like unions and corporations and others to campaign directly for candidates, which they couldn't do before. They could do issue ads or whatever else, but now they basically they could campaign for candidates, and a lot of people very, very upset with that. Obama railed about it. In the State of the Union address that year, he criticized the court as they sat in front of him for that ruling because Citizens United allowed, say, I don't know, would it allow somebody like Tesla, Elon Musk, to spend as much money on behalf of his preferred candidates and preferred party directly. So, all right, okay, go ahead.
Coordinated.
Yeah, I think people who would not favor the decision was a further erosion of limitations on campaign contributions and spending. I mean, we already had a situation where a political party could contribute sort of in parallel with, but could not coordinate with the campaign. Now they've taken that down and said you can do it because they say the First Amendment gives you that right. So yeah, I think it's an extension of Citizens United. And the question I think really is, okay, what comes next? There are still some limits on campaign contributions, and I'm sure there'll be further challenges now.
What's left? What's left?
Well, how much a person can contribute to a campaign, for example. Right. You're limited how much you can give to a campaign. The whole theory, as you know, Danny, is a corruption issue. Whether it gives rise to a quid pro quo, I'll give you so much money that you'll do something for me when you're in office. And that's the question I think the court addressed here and concluded that this did not really cross that line. I also will say the question will be, does this favor Democrats or Republicans, particularly as we go into midterms? I think the received wisdom was in the short term, it'll favor the Republicans because they have a lot more money in their war chest right now. President Trump has been a great fundraiser, without a doubt. But typically in these things, the other side catches up. And the one thing I'll guarantee you right now, there are fundraising requests going out from the Democrats right now for the Democratic Party saying you've got to contribute now because look at what the Supreme Court did.
Yeah, that's good. I think they explained it even better than I did, so that was good. I think the young reporter there, the young lady, really did a good job explaining it. The thing about it is, I asked my students, which would, as a candidate, would you rather have? Me giving you $2,900 or me spending $100,000 on your behalf? And they'd all say the bigger amount, of course. The truth is, the politicians rather have that $2,900 hard money because you can directly do it whatever you want with it. I mean, you can't go buy your car with it, but you could campaign with it as you want. Whereas under the previous rulings, under the previous laws, I could not tell somebody who's spending that $100,000 on my behalf what to do with it. Now I can. And also, you mentioned the cheaper ads. The difference between me buying an ad with hard money is about $9,000 for like the 30-second spot on local TV. If the Republicans want to buy one on my behalf, it'd be $22,000. Now they're all going to get the cheaper rate. And with the Republicans having a 3-to-1 money advantage, that really is going to be an impact on the next elections. Now, I will state here, just because of history and the way things have gone, with only a couple of exceptions, the party that held the White House almost always lost seats in the House of Representatives, and all the Democrats have to do is win by 3, and they take over. And they're going to embody that old adage, be careful what you wish for. Because right now the Democrat Party is being swamped with Democrat socialist candidates. You're not a Democrat socialist, are you, by any means, Josh? I mean, I know you're out there, but...
Good question.
Yeah, good question. Well, the Democrat socialists are kind of like, I wouldn't say they're like the Tea Party exactly, but back in 2010 and 12, the Republicans had a very conservative uprising, so to speak, and they elected a ton of people under the banner of Tea Party. Now, the Tea Party is not a separate party. The Democrat Socialists are, but they're running in Democratic primaries. This shows how weak the party system is. The Tea Party were Republicans. They were conservative Republicans, more conservative than the ones they were running against in primaries and such. And it resulted in one of the biggest turnouts and turnovers in the House history in the 2010 election. 83 new members. But But as far as the Democrat Socialists, they are a separate party. Mandami is not a Democrat. Bernie Sanders is not a Democrat. AOC is not a Democrat. They are Democrat Socialists, but they run and operate within the Democrat Party. And some Democrats, more conservative ones or moderate ones, look at them as parasites because they're basically they're using the aspects of the Democrat Party in terms of fundraising, as platform to get committee assignments, things like that. But they're not part of the party. Bernie Sanders has never been a Democrat, but he's run twice under their banner for the presidency, or for the primaries anyway. So the analogy you might read about them being the Democrat Socialists being like the Tea Party is strained a little bit because again, none of the Tea Party ever said that they're not Republicans. These Democrat Socialists are different. And they are, well, let's just say that I don't know any Democrat that has these positions on these issues. Most of the Democrats I know, liberal or not, are not supportive of some of these issues that the Democrat Socialists are proposing. And since they are running and winning in primaries in districts that are so heavily Democrat that the idea that a Republican will win them is non-existent, that they're going to be members of Congress. And if the prognostications are right and the Democrats say win 7 or 8 seats total and they take over the House, what you're going to have basically is the House of Representatives held hostage by members of this party. Because there's going to be about 8 to 9 of them. There's already 2 or 3 right now that are members of that party that are AOC is Democrat Socialist. Elon Omar is one. Ayanna Pressley is one from Massachusetts. There's going to be about anywhere from 8 to 10 Democrat Socialists, and they will hold the balance of power in the House of Representatives. Let's hear what they got to say. How about that one from Colorado who won last week? Stop for a second. AIPAC, by the way, AIPAC is the American Israel Political Action Committee. It's a political action committee that supports Israel, and all these Democrat Socialists have a very, very poor opinion of Israel. They are all pro-Palestine, they believe in Gaza as a genocide as opposed to anything else. So that's that. If you could continue now, please.
We will not wait to end the genocide in Palestine.
See what I mean? Anyway, they also want to abolish the police. They also, when they say abolish ICE, they want to get rid of immigration. They are in favor of open borders, Medicare for all. Basically, they're basically following the lead of Mondani in New York City. This woman that was ranting and raving, she just won a district in Denver, very blue district in Denver, and she beat a woman who had been representing that area for 30 years. There was 3 of them that were elected about 2 weeks ago in New York, in Manhattan, believe it or not, and they beat 2 Democrat incumbents, including the leader of the Latino caucus, who had been there for like 30 years. And so what you're getting here is the first target that these Democrat Socialists are going after isn't just Trump and Republicans, it's Democrats. This is a really big problem. I've been reading a lot from Democrat editorials in the Post or Wall Street Journal, whatever else, and reading articles in general, and they are very worried because they're going to be the Republicans are going to say, if you vote for a Democrat in your district, this is who's going to be running it. A lot of people don't make that connection. You know, when you vote for a House member, it isn't just, you're not just voting for that person over another person. You're also voting for which party is going to control the House of Representatives primarily, is what we're talking about here. And so that's what's going to happen. And now that the Republicans got 3 times the money, there you go. Mr. Mason has another point. A key point for the midterms will be New York City and the issues there. It's been all federal government socialist until the mayor of New York started showing what can happen. That may be a turnoff to those those socialists running. What's going to happen is, again, I'm going to see ads saying you need to vote for whatever Republican is running. I think in my district it's Jake Elsey, and I don't even know if he has an opponent, but let's say he does. The ads are going to say, if you vote for this Democrat, this is what you're going to get. And they'll show this ranting woman, or they show this other one talking about how we need to end deportations regardless. Why don't you run that one if you would?
I want to still ask about 2 tweets specifically because I think they are relevant to the race. The first is all deportation is wrong. Now, in Congress, obviously, that comes with a lot of questions about immigration enforcement. And even as Democrats might agree with calls that you have shared to things like abolish ICE, I don't know if they're necessarily there on things like all deportation is wrong. Is that something you still believe?
That phrase, yes. I still believe that all deportations are wrong. And
even if we're talking about illegal entry to the country or someone who may have committed a crime?
So when we're talking about things like illegal entry, we're actually talking about administrative laws, right? We're not talking about criminal law.
Let me
Stop. That's not true. That's not true at all. It's not an administrative law. It is a criminal offense. That's been the whole debate about illegal entry into this country in the first place. Now, we could debate about that all we want on another topic, on another show, but that's a false statement. Go ahead.
Things like illegal entry, we're actually talking about administrative laws, right? We're not talking about criminal law.
Let me concede the question of people who have not committed a crime, because I think that that's not really the question at hand. Like, if we're saying all deportation is wrong, though, that would seem to also include people who were convicted of breaking U.S. criminal law. Is the deportation of those people wrong?
Yes, and the reason I say that is because we have a criminal system.
Stop. She wants to ban the police. She wants to abolish the police. She said that in her campaign victory speech 2 weeks ago. Who's going to be enforcing the law? Is this criminal system that I don't understand it. So she's saying, oh, well, we have a criminal justice system to deal with these immigrants here illegally that commit crimes, no matter how heinous they are. But she wants to abolish prisons. She wants to abolish the police. And this is not me just inferring it. She said it herself. I tried to find a good clip of her campaign victory speech, but they're all like 16 minutes long and all this other stuff and a lot of cheering. And I just don't want to waste a lot of time on it. But the point is, I've watched that victory speech on YouTube. And she said, we're going to abolish ICE, we're going to abolish the police, we're going to abolish prisons. And now she's saying, well, we got a criminal system to take care of that problem. A criminal system that she would do away with if she had her way. Is there any more left of this rambling? Go ahead.
Yeah, a minute left.
All right, let's see what we got.
Exists. And it is one that if we accept as the process by which we want to engage with these issues, right, the issues of harm, issues of criminality, or what have you, then we need to make sure that it is one that isn't also discriminatory on the basis of where people were born, right? To subject someone who has committed a crime to both a criminal system and then additionally to an immigration system that also detains them in the very same facilities that people who are convicted of criminal convictions are also held, right? And then deported and ripped away from everything they know and love. That is also punishment. And that is punishment not on the basis of the crime they committed, because they already served their time when they were processed through the criminal system. It is double punishment.
I can't handle it anymore. First of all, she's doing what a lot of politicians do, which is kind of muddy the waters and fudge the issue. She said very clearly she would abolish police in the prisons. Second of all, it's not discriminatory to send an undocumented person here convicted of a crime back home. All right, that's just ludicrous. Okay, again, as far as the immigration system, it had a lot of problems, and Joe Biden really has caused a lot of this by his open border de facto policy. But the point is that this is what the Democrat Party will be held hostage to if they take over the House. And I'm not saying go out there and vote Republican. What I'm saying to Democrats, if I have any that listen, which I hope I do, is you need to take your party back. You know, y'all are always complaining about MAGA taking over the Republicans. You need to, you know, put this MAGA movement down. Well, you got your own problems now. And the harm that you see, or maybe, you know, we can debate that too. The problems you see with MAGA are the problems that we see that with the Democrat Socialists. They are going to not just fundamentally alter this country, but fundamentally ruin it. No police, no ICE. As far as Medicare for all, that's been shown over and over again not to be only financially impossible, but it is unworkable. You go ask anybody that lives in Great Britain how they feel about their healthcare system, and you're going to get a very pointed opinion. Okay? And so, and they point to like the Scandinavian countries. Well, first of all, Scandinavian countries are about the size of DFW in terms of population. Second of all, they have a different culture. Third of all, they're also scaling way back on this kind of thing. And they're a lot harder on immigration than we have been. So let's end these delusions and dreams of let's be like Sweden. Now, again, I'm not, what I'm saying is, you know, most people that know me know over my career or life, whatever, I voted Republican. And I've had some issues with that lately. Some of the Republicans have been running. They made it hard. A couple of cases I just sat that particular race out. But the point is, if they have a situation where we have maybe Democrats have like a 6 or 7 seat majority, and you got 10 of these Democrat socialists, they're not going to back down. They have ambitions in 2028. They're already trying to gin a AOC as a candidate for 2028. That'd be very interesting. He said, well, she'll never get elected. No, but she could have a lot of influence on it, like Bernie Sanders did on Joe Biden. Okay? And what you also get are people who are looking for, quote, authentic working class heroes, like this guy here. If you're just listening and not watching, I'm showing you a picture of Graham Plattner of Maine. This guy won the Democratic primary in a walk a month ago. And he portrays himself as a working class slob or whatever, an oyster fisherman, and just a hardworking blue collar kind of guy. And he's none of those things. He was a private school kid. You can keep the picture up. Yeah, there it is. He's a private school kid. He says, I was drafted and sent to Iraq. He is no such thing. He volunteered, went 3 terms, come back with multiple PTSD issues. He had horrendous postings on Reddit and on Twitter, anti-Semitic, bigoted, misogynistic stuff. The Nazi tattoo, he said, I had no idea what it meant. I had that tattoo when I was in the Army and had it for 18 years. And he had no idea it had a Nazi meaning to it, which I find to be rubbish because he also claims to be a history buff and an expert on military history. And you're going to tell me that tattoo, he had no idea? He also talked about, hey, I run my own business. Yeah, he has one client, his mother, who runs a restaurant. He lives off his parents' money. But the Democrats in Maine created this image of him being just a working class kind of guy. And we'll ignore all these other stuff, these other statements that he made in his youth, which was about 3 years ago or 4 years ago. Some of this is post-COVID. This isn't stuff that he posted when he was a teenager or early 20s. This is stuff he posted in the last 3 or 4 years. And it just astounded me how the Democrats in Maine were so willing to overlook all this stuff. Even before the primary, a woman came out and said he would say all these terrible things about people, and he was very aggressive with me personally. Well, she's a Republican, so they dismissed it so much for Believe All Women. Then yesterday, a woman comes up who said that he assaulted her when they were dating. And so now he's, quote, suspended his campaign to decide what to do. And all the Democrats, like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and AOC and these California Democrats led by Ro Khanna and all these others who had said, this is the guy we want to see in the Senate, are like, they're dropping him like a hot piece of stink. Elizabeth Warren is the one that makes me want to puke the most. She was like, this is the man we've been needing in the Senate. Really? A guy with all these issues and been accused of assault. Has he been proven in court? No. And he denies it. But this is what the woman says. And now the Democrats like, my stars, we had no idea. This is what we're getting. You know, these are the kind of people we're getting, and they want to run our country because we're so desperate to beat the other side that we're willing to overlook just about anything. I don't think there's anything that would be overlooked. They couldn't possibly be surprised by this, the Democrats that supported him. They knew what kind of man he was. They knew his history. They knew that all these problems that he said they were in the past only a couple of years ago. Not this isn't something that happened 20 years ago and he's been recovered alcoholic or something like that. But we're so desperate to beat the other side that we'll jettison anything and everything we ever stood for or thought about as decent moral positions just to beat the other side. And this is what we're getting, and it happens on both sides. This is where we get Matt Gaetz, and this is where we get some of those nitwits, like Marjorie Taylor Greene and stuff like that. It just... I'd never been so depressed about our political system as I am right now. Not just because it's not as dysfunctional. It's always been a mess. I mean, you look at our history, and it's always been a mess. And it's always been antagonistic, and it's always been acrimonious. I mean, this idea that back in the day they all would sing Kumbaya after the meetings is just not true. But it wasn't like this. And people like this were not getting elected or nominated by their parties. All right. Now, Mr. Mason also says the Democrats used to have the moderate blue dog base that kept their party on track. They don't have a Sam Nunn, whom, if you don't know who that is, it was a Georgia governor who was very moderate. I remember him from the 80s and 90s. Or Ted Kennedy, which I'm not a big fan of, but it's okay. Or Ted Kennedy to lead them anymore. It's all social media Democrats who scream the loudest. And that's true. Got any comments over there? No, you're just...
Yeah, sorry, doing my little research over here.
Do your research, okay.
I do like what Sanford Mason just said. It's the social media Democrats who scream the loudest. Mm-hmm. And I think that your more conservative Democrats are getting stepped on too much. Mm-hmm. And I think I've been vocal about this to you before, how Democrats are like, oh no, someone should do something about this. This is bad. And it's like you guys are the ones who are supposed to be doing something about this. Yeah. So I think that's where the appeal of this is coming from. It's people who have shown that change can be made. People who are actually passionate for things to change.
But are these the kind of changes we want? Abolishing prisons and the police, open borders. Basically, you got mayors in New York and in Seattle who are talking about confiscating private property on behalf of the city. Is that what we want? Yeah.
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, sure I do. I mean, I'm not going to tell you what to say.
Yeah.
Okay, well, fine. I disagree.
I will say that, and I mentioned this to you beforehand, the abolishing of the prisons and police, that's a little too extreme in my opinion. I do think they need a reform. But I agree with, I disagree with some of the Democratic Socialists, but I also agree with quite a bit of it.
Well, okay, you say quite a bit. Like which what? Like what?
Well, ending corporate funding into politicians, ending interference with other unnamed countries, stopping ICE, I think, would be a pretty big thing. Now, I will say
disagree
that,
with some of that.
I will say that abolishing ICE does not mean we don't have any more immigration enforcement, but keeping ICE the way it's going out would be a good thing. ICE as it has evolved into now, not just completely saying, okay, open borders and no enforcement for our immigration.
Well, here's the thing. The moderation of ICE or anything like that is off the table with these guys. They want to get rid of it altogether. And and you watch some of the tactics of ICE and you say, hey, that's not really what I was talking about. And I get it. As far as the confiscation of private property in the cities, what they're talking about is like housing and stuff like that. No, if it's never worked, socialism has never worked when it's actually been applied. All right. And the idea that, they got these, buildings in New York that the Democrats say, or at least Democrat socialists say, that should be owned by the city so we can put housing in it. Well, if they want to buy it and the landlord's willing to sell it, then one thing. But just to say we're confiscating it.
That is a little too extreme.
All right.
But like what is the Pierre de Toe tax?
Yeah. Right, which is like a second home kind of thing, right?
Yeah, untaxed vacation homes that are completely unoccupied. I've been calling for that for a little bit.
Okay.
And I mean, the results do kind of speak for themselves,
Well, having that tax on unoccupied domiciles, so to speak, is that unconstitutional? No. Is that a good idea?
It's more money for the state.
I have real problems of taxing our way out of our problems. And the cities have tremendous problems. And a lot of it has to do with the taxes. Why would anybody live in New York? If you're a person of means in New York City, you're going to be spending over 60% of your income at a certain level on taxes. Why would they do that? And what you're seeing and what's happening is people are abandoning Chicago, New York, Seattle, Denver because of these extreme tax policies. And the idea that here I'm a homeowner, that I'm a building owner in New York and I'm going to have my building taken from me and given over to public housing and whatever else they decide to do with it. That's just contrary to everything in the American capitalist and free enterprise system. And again, if I want to sell it to them, give me a good price. And they can do what they want with it.
I agree with you there.
Yeah, but the taking it, that's what Madami's talking about. That's what I think her name is Wilson, is talking about in Seattle. Okay? So that's a big problem. As far as the police and ICE, particularly, let's talk about the police. I have a great deal of regard, respect for the police. Now, are they perfect? No. But I think a lot of it has to do with individual cops as opposed to the police as a institution.
Yes.
Okay.
And when the majority of people say police reform, that's what we're talking about, is not the police as an institution, but the corruption within the police force.
And not every police officer or police force is needing that much reform. I mean, I don't think our Burleson police force is corrupt by any means. Or every one of the cops great. Most
of the guys at Burleson Police.
Yeah, the Burleson Police are good. And have they had, the 35 years I've lived in Burleson, has every one of them been up to the standards? No. And then Billy Cordell gets rid of them if they're not.
And that's how it should be.
Yeah,
but that's not how it is.
And
I think that's where the call for reform is.
Tina Michael says, I have so much to say, but I won't be able to keep up typing. Well, I bet that's true.
Right. Brad's Facebook wall is always open, Tina.
Yeah, she'll catch me at Gina's or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, thanks for putting me out there. My Facebook wall will be.
Hey, it's the place where they're entitled to your opinion.
Yeah, there you go. Well, no, I just like to have something to bounce off of because I've had to moderate some of my opinions over the years, and I've had to reconsider. All right, as life goes on, you find out, well, maybe this particular position I had when I was 30 doesn't really hold water anymore. Or that position that I had at 30 was right on the button. And, so I try to keep a mind open enough that, I have a certain rubric, if you will, of values and political positions and whatever else, but they're not written by the hand of God in stone. It's they are subject for review and reconsideration. But these guys are too far, much too far. And Tina says, Brad knows I respect him. Yes, I do, Tina. I know that. That's not a problem. I know that, absolutely. I'd like to close this down not tomorrow. Next week on Tuesday, I have the mayor. I won't be talking about this, I don't think. We'll be talking about the budget because that's what they're doing right now. I mean, the budget's going to be, it has to be approved officially by September 30th, but they don't wait till September to work on it. They're working on a rough draft on it now. We'll get that idea. And then Thursday of next week, we have Next Step Women's Center. It's Christmas in July, by the way. And, there we go. Christmas in July it's different. They used to have an event. You drive by, give toys to poor sweating Santa. But basically now it's just a month-long thing. You can go by and deliver toys, or you can get on their Amazon wish list. And they have collection boxes similar to what Toys R Tots are doing. And this is for their little boutique they have there. For what they do there is they have what they call baby bucks, and these parents, or either the father or the mother, go to enough classes, they get these coupons, if you will, and they get to go to buy toys for their kids, for their little babies, and clothing up to, I think it goes up to a toddler size and that kind of thing. So there you go. Well, I appreciate you jumping in, Josh.
Yeah.
I know it's out of your comfort zone.
I'm getting better at it.
Getting better at it, huh?
What can I say?
Well, I hope I'm not being too aggressive with you, but
No.
but
No, trust me, I've had way worse.
really, yeah, I got it. So have I. So anyway, like I said, also, by the way, the food pantries, again, they need your help. It's summertime, very difficult to keep up with everything because of all the extra need they have. So thanks for joining me. Thanks for letting me rant. I hope that I made some sense. And we will see you next week.